Is this the kind of drug that a family might have a couple boxes of it, they test, and then they take it, and then everybody would, I think, feel a lot better about everything, no?
Yeah, look, Tamiflu isn't indicated for stockpiling in your medicine cabinet. Some doctors make a decision working with their patients to allow them to have a dose. No, you're right that a lot of people do that. But that's the kind of discretion you have in a normalized supply chain. Right now, you can't do that because this is under government distribution. They're controlling very tightly what doctors can do. When you have a normalized supply chain, doctors do have discretion to make decisions like that. If they know, for example, they have a patient who's unusually vulnerable, they want them to have a dose accessible, they know they're at risk of contracting flu, and it's important to get that dose in early, you might make a decision like that as a physician, and some patients do that.
So how critical, though, do you think, and is there another drug, another therapeutic that you think is either on the make that's coming soon?
Look, there's a lot in early development. The one that's in late-stage development is a drug by Roche. But, the Pfizer drug is a protease inhibitor. There are other companies trying to develop protease inhibitors. Pfizer's working on other molecules as well. I think you're going to see continued innovation in this space, much like you've seen continued innovation in the space for drugs targeting influenza. We've seen other drugs come on the market besides Tamiflu. So I think that this coronavirus isn't such a wily virus that we're not going to be able to figure out how to get better and better drugs onto the market that are easier to take, maybe one dose, maybe a shorter duration, and maybe more efficacious. Although the Pfizer drug is highly efficacious, it's possible to develop drugs that are even more efficacious.
Stefan Bancel of Moderna saying that a fourth dose will likely be required, that the third booster will diminish over time. That wasn't a surprise to me, but if you look at some of the headlines, it seems to be a surprise to others. My bigger question about that, though, is whether you think that the fourth dose, to the extent there will be a fourth dose, will have to be shifted to deal with either Omicron or some other variant in terms of how the thinking goes about that.
Yeah, look, I think now that we're in the pandemic and we have persistent infection, you're going to see some people get a dose every 6 months who are immunocompromised, who are excessively vulnerable to this virus. For most people, this will probably become, for the foreseeable future, an annualized vaccination, which is what we've long thought. In terms of making a shift to another vaccine, I think this is something we need to take up with global health authorities, because if we do have to move towards a multivalent vaccine, this isn't a decision that the United States can make alone. These are global vaccines that are distributed to other countries. So you're going to need agreement across the world, much like we get agreement across the world around the flu vaccine, what antigens go in the flu vaccine each season. And I think the difficulty is going to be in a lot of developing markets, you're going to see an extreme reluctance to shift the vaccine, because what they're going to argue, rightly so, is they haven't even vaccinated their population with the first vaccine. They haven't gotten baseline immunity into their population. If we shift to another vaccine now, it's going to be an even increased impediment towards vaccine equity around the world. So I think you're going to see extreme reluctance by global health regulators to shift this vaccine. That's a discussion we ought to be having right now. That's what the World Health Organization ought to be doing, is having that discussion, because we might need to move towards a multivalent vaccine, or at least be prepared to do it. We have the technology to do it. That's not going to be the impediment. It's going to be global public health agreement.